friends. Welcome to the Logistics of Logistics podcast. My name is Joe Lynch. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today's topic is scaling logistics innovation at Descartes Systems Group with Dan Cicerchi. How's it going, Dan?
Good, Joe. How are you doing?
Not too bad. I hope I didn't botch your name too badly.
No, perfectly.
So, Dan, please introduce yourself and your company and where you're calling from today.
Sure. So I am in New York City, Manhattan, and work for Descartes Systems Group. We're a publicly traded technology company. I mean, global coverage and force, really focusing around routing, transportation management, customs compliance, e-commerce enablement. And I am the general manager of our transportation management pillar, which is a business unit within Descartes.
So when you say Descartes, who are the main customers for Descartes?
Our main customers are anybody that has a responsibility to ship goods. And so those could be shippers, freight forwarders, LSPs, carriers. So that whole ecosystem of businesses and then the underlying technology that really requires to make it efficient, visible, and highly performant. So we have a large list of customers across the globe.
Now, do you think of yourself as a technology company first, or is there services, kind of a combination of both? Give me a sense for that.
Yeah, no, great question. So we are a technology company. We're a SaaS provider, and like I said, publicly traded, and we provide the capabilities, so the software and tools to help our customers improve their supply chain operations.
I like it. I know also what seems to be happening in our space is there's companies like Descartes are going and buying companies to kind of fill out this technology suite. So it's not having to buy technology from 6 different companies. You kind of have the order to cash covered.
That's for sure. I mean, that is, if we go back to our charter back 40 years ago, that really was and still is our mission today. And that's really consolidating the technology landscape to give customers fewer vendors and a more consistent, higher quality, integrated experience. I mean, we at Descartes probably buy 4 to 6 businesses a year. And, we have the strategy of, we buy our neighbor's house, meaning we buy technology that are adjacent to the solutions that we already have that give our customers more capability within the Descartes ecosystem.
Yep. Dan, I'm originally an automotive guy, and I worked in automotive for 25 years. And then I made this move to logistics. And one of the reasons I went to this company is they had a TMS, which when I saw it, I said, oh my God, this is fantastic. And I remember going out and giving the demo. We didn't develop it. We just bought it. And I'd give the demo to my customers. They looked at me like I was Steve Jobs. And I remember saying to friends, I said to customers, this is it. This is the silver bullet that figures out transportation management systems. I mean, a TMS figures out everything. And I don't know, maybe it was right for an hour or two. And then all these other software, we'll talk more about those before we finish, but the TMS was a huge breakthrough. But it was just the beginning. And now it's like, we keep building on it. And I always call all the tools, like the visibility tools, the pricing tools, all that stuff that integrates with our transportation management system. Those are the killer apps that we absolutely positively have to have.
That's right. I mean, I think, for a company that's moving an international shipment to a final mile customer delivery, there's probably 50 plus vendors of software that are required to facilitate that. Imagine being a customer trying to evaluate, choose, and integrate all these capabilities. So that is, I think, and it probably, over the last 25 years, shipping has gotten more complicated, not less.
Oh,
so
yeah.
The journey we're on of innovation, the finish line just continues to get extended, which is interesting. It's exciting, and I think for people that love new challenges, it's an amazing place to be.
Oh yeah. And you're absolutely right to say the business is more complicated and more demanding every year. A friend of mine called me today he's not in logistics and said, "Hey, I'm tracking this UPS truck. I'm dropping off a, I don't know, lawnmower part I ordered." And he goes, "It says it's in my neighborhood." I was like, "Yeah, the expectations are there now that for consumers that I want that." Anyway, we'll get to all that in a minute. But Dan, first tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? Some career highlights before you joined the mothership Descartes.
Sure. So I'm a Cleveland, Ohio, born and raised. As I said, I have all the scars of being a Cleveland sports fan. If you grow up in Cleveland, you learn resiliency at a young age. So I went to John Carroll University, also in Cleveland, and my business partner, who I met a few years after school, Bennett Adelson, and I really saw an opportunity in technology consulting. Low barriers to entry when it comes to investment. It's really about, capability and effort versus a lot of hard cash to invest. So Bennett and I went on a mission to build industry leading technology solutions. And at the time that was websites, building .coms for corporations that were excited, and the internet was new and exciting. This is 1999.
You were Steve Jobs too.
Sometimes people felt like that. And we really differentiated ourselves because we could evaluate and hire some of the most technically capable people in the area. And that really is what our calling card was as we built our consulting business. And we had some phenomenal people. The business is still in operation today. We sold the business, but that really in the late 2008, 2009, we wanted to differentiate our revenue. So we thought, how do we get, and I think this is pre-SaaS, we called it a recurring revenue business. And we could get more value out of the capabilities of our team than a per hour rate. So that was the journey we were on. We are indeed a few different scenarios, but ultimately the outcome of or the winner was MacroPoint. And that was the birth of MacroPoint.
So you're one of the founders of MacroPoint, and I got to tell you, I came to the logistics phase 2010, and I remember when somebody described to me, probably in 2010, 11, we want MacroPoint on our shipment, and I was like, I don't even know what that is. And then when somebody described it, I was like, well, we can't afford that. Like we're not making enough money on this. Like I can't afford to this is like nonsense talk. And then they're like, somebody told me the price. I was like, oh my God. Like, and I should also preface this by saying we always use the term, we have a transportation management system that gives you real-time updates. What we meant by real-time updates was within an hour or so, depending what the EDI was doing. And real time didn't mean real time for a long time.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. And, we're on an almost 15-year journey with MacroPoint, and talking about the goal lines, the complexity continues to grow, as a global provider. Back in the day, we were just tracking truckload shipments. We now track every mode in almost every region of the world. So the complexity's grown dramatically. But the core tenet still remains the same, and that is the raw material that's required to power all the innovations that we have starts with real-time data. Where is that shipment and what is happening? And then how do we build around AI agents and TMS events and other business rules to really react to that? But if you don't have that raw material, we might as well be back in pre MacroPoint days.
Yes, and I make this observation all the time. Some of us saw the possibility in our personal life before we saw it in our professional life. And, every logistics company I've talked to over the last 10 years say, somebody somewhere says, I ordered toothpaste from Amazon and it was on my porch in an hour, yet I'm spending $150,000 on, I have a $150,000 load with you and you don't know where it is and I don't know where it is. What's going on? And so we kind of brought what our personal expectations, what we had in our personal life, to work. And now the expectations are, when I say real time, it better be pretty close to real time.
100%. And that was in the early days, the Amazon-like expectation that you articulated, exactly what we heard. And then, we were grinding for a few years. And then one day, we were on a floor of a brokerage and they were saying macro point the load. We got to macro point the load. And we knew that at that point we made it. If someone's using your product name and a verb like
you made
that,
it, your tissue,
that's your tissue. So your Kleenex. So
yeah. Kleenex, not tissue.
That was a huge excitement point for us.
Yeah. So when and why did MacroPoint become part of Descartes?
So as we continued to scale the business, we saw a huge opportunity to expand, both in terms of modes and then also in terms of geography. So as we thought about kind of the next level investment thesis, and we had a great private equity partner in Susquehanna, it really gave us the opportunities to decide, do you want to double down? We certainly had a lot of interest from investors, and including Descartes. And then as we got to know Ed Ryan and the other leadership at Descartes, we thought this is a great environment for us, both in terms of the geographic reach, but also the personality of the business. We're not flashy. We don't make, crazy promises. We don't live on the bleeding edge because our customers don't want us to, but we need to be predictable, trustworthy, and work our tails off. And that's really part of what the Descartes environment is. So it just made sense.
Yeah. You guys are from Ohio. It's different. I feel like there's a different culture. I've worked for Silicon Valley companies and nothing wrong with them, but it's a different vibe there. They got a swagger out there and maybe less humble than say the guys in the Midwest who say, we're going to be held accountable for what we say. So let's make sure we do it. I apologize in advance to any of the VCs living out in the West Coast.
But we do have an accountability in our business, and we make mistakes, but we own up to them. We have to solve them quickly. And, proud to say that because of the fit that Bennett and I saw in Descartes, it's actually come true. Our head of R&D for MacroPoint is still there. Our head of product is still with us 8+ years later. Our head of support is still with us 8 years later. Tons of our sales leaders are still with us. I mean, it's a fantastic fit for us.
So I know you know Ben Darren. We talked about him before we hit the record button. I spent a lot of time with Ben. I interviewed him, and I remember he said, either offline or on the podcast, he said, when MacroPoint sold to Descartes, he said, I loved it. He goes, I think he was there for a decade. And he said, I could have been very happy for the rest of my career staying there. He goes, I had this entrepreneurial bug, so I left. He said, but I wouldn't have never left unless I was going to go start something on my own. And he spoke super highly of, first the MacroPoint team, but also so often when a company that's entrepreneurial gets bought by another company, it quickly becomes all the guys left. Not the case when MacroPoint went to Descartes.
That's right. And Ben, was our first seller and really started selling as we were still building the product, just to understand the market fit and opportunity. And again, as a Cleveland guy, he's resilient. We used to say, take one punch, throw two, as you're, trying to work through your business. And he's taken everything and more of what he's learned and really built other opportunities for himself. And I'm so proud and excited for him.
Yep. Yep. I love what he's doing over there. It's Speed to Quote. I'll make sure I put a link to that episode just so people can see what Ben's up to. So check the show notes. So today's topic is scaling logistics innovation at Descartes Systems Group. So I had some notes here. So AI has been this, it's a buzzword. It's happening. It's not just a buzzword, but you always wonder, is this all hype? Is it magic? What's going on? So I know you guys are using AI. And I know also, just before we hit the record button, you said it's not necessarily the silver bullet. Don't get too carried away. Let's not take risks. Give us a sense for how AI flow workflows work in at Descartes.
Sure. And certainly AI is a broad topic. The AI that, has been around for a while, so machine learning, we've had that within Descartes, we've had that within MacroPoint specifically for, 5, 6, 7 years. So an example inside of MacroPoint, we have a capacity network, and we have an AI model that really looks and starts to decide, hey, what are the best carriers that could cover this load, and pushes to our customers, hey, here are the top carriers. And there's lots of reasons why, and we continue to train the model to make the right decisions about the predictions. Certainly ETA, another AI model that we continue to train around predictions there. Now, what's new and exciting is the large language models, right? So that is the ChatGPT capabilities. And then I think the natural outgrowth of that is the agentic AI. And that's what I think a lot of people, including myself, are super excited about. When we think about it, and our Descartes strategy, right, is buy, build, and innovate. So we see and we work with partners, right, where we're integrating AI partners where we feel like there's a nice capability, good value to our customers, and they kind of check the boxes around some of the expectations that we have around data security, how you're training your model, some of the maybe not as exciting things, but they're important things to us. And when we've built, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You mentioned agentic. And so I think those are the agents that we all kind of hear about. And I think that's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but I think a lot of us are looking forward to that capability because it means that my customer doesn't necessarily have to talk to me on the phone. They can have an agent. And as soon as there's a comfort level, we use all sorts of things that they're, when email came out, it was like, well, I can't email the guy. I have to talk to him about this. And then at some point you go, send an email. Well, no, we have to have a meeting. Send an email. And after a while, send a text. So we'll get used to that. And I think people are excited about that. It's just, and I think it's going to be potentially take a lot of the grunt work away from, people following up on freight. Hey, I just want to confirm that you got that moved. And it's like, yeah, AI can ask. An agentic agent, I guess. It's probably redundant. An agent can answer that question without you necessarily talking to someone on my team.
That's right. And and you'll see, like a lot of people, we've personified our agents. So it's clear in the customer's head that there's different use cases that the agents are performing. And you can decide, hey, which of the agents do you want to turn on? So it's a fun discovery that we're with customers to help them educate. And we're having a blast building those out too.
Yep. So when you say customers, Descartes has a transportation management system, obviously, and much more. It's got the MacroPoint. What else are they buying from Descartes?
So Descartes, we have 26,000 customers globally, give or take. So they might be buying data for customs insights and understanding tariffs, and certainly now more than ever with a lot of the changes, making sure you understand on a per country level what your exposure is, what it's changing. lots of things there. We have customers that have fleets, so wanting to optimize your fleet in terms of orders to fleets, creating routes that optimize and reduce mileage, reduce, time on the road, things like that. We have a whole e-commerce pillar, really operationalizing all the back end. So once a purchase is made, all the things that are needed from pick, pack, and ship to final mile delivery, we have the capabilities that our customers need.
So are you selling to shippers and brokers, and are you any carriers using this also?
Yeah, so we have carriers are a huge part of our network. So they do buy sometimes connectivity to our global logistics network where their customers say, hey, I need these document types and this data in this format, and they leverage our global logistics network. But in a large part, the carriers really are, in many ways, the most important piece of many of our networks. So take MacroPoint, for instance. I used to make phone calls when we started MacroPoint, calling drivers every day, typically after dinner time, to help them install MacroPoint. And that gave me a real appreciation for, and our teams continue to learn like this today, what do the drivers need? How do we make their experience better? Because they opt in millions to our networks. We want to make sure that we're helping them do their jobs in a safe and consistent way. And with app fatigue now, drivers don't want to have 50 apps on their phone. And we feel honored that they choose to have MacroPoint to be one of those few apps. And we feel a huge responsibility every day to make sure we earn that place on their phone.
Yeah, that app fatigue is a thing. And I a few years ago, there was just one little company after another said, all you got to do is download our app. And I would always say at some point, there comes a time when the driver says, why am I downloading all these apps when there's certainly leaders. There's ones that everybody's using. And then there's the startup that said, it's easy, just download our app, like they invented it. I heard Mark Cuban talk about this on Shark Tank. He said the average person uses 7 apps on their phone. And they're very, very choosy about what they use and also a little fickle. So if they, for whatever reason, think this is a pain in the ass, this one's sending me notifications, and no matter what, it won't stop. It's gone.
Sure. And I think the same thing with the agentic solutions. So I think we're seeing a rise of these pop-up born in the cloud AI vendors that have no perspective on the impact of these technologies on the drivers. And so they're, having the AI agents call the driver every 15 minutes or every hour. I mean, this is not productive. And it actually reflects negatively, not on that, just on the agent, but ultimately on the customer that is choosing to leverage that agent. So the technology is really just the first layer of what's super important as we think about the relationship that you want to extend down to the drivers that we hold sacrosanct. So it's you will not see MacroPoint calling drivers with agents every 15 minutes or hour. It's just not productive.
Well, it's also start recognizing the business you're in. And I think this is the challenge with a lot of startups, and I'm not saying all of them. There used to be a time in this business when there was the tech guys and the operations guy who understood brokerage and carriers and shippers. Now I think we're seeing that hopefully merge in a lot of places like Descartes, where you say, yes, I've talked to drivers. I know what their life is like. I know what the carriers want from me. I know what the shippers want from me. And I'm not going to say, hey, it's all easy. It's all in the cloud. Before we leave that point, I've said this many times on my podcast. I'm going to say it a lot more times. Cybersecurity is a huge concern. Freight fraud is a huge concern. And the challenge I have right now, I think the industry has, is we have all sorts of smaller companies that can't possibly make the investments in the hygiene and the security that we absolutely positively need. I think could be looking at a cyber 9/11, a digital 9/11, and the day after that, everyone's going to say, why in the world was I working with this little company? They couldn't keep up with the bad guys.
Yeah, for sure. And I mentioned earlier in our conversation, we're not on the bleeding edge because our customers don't want us to be. And I think we are seeing it's a bit of the Wild West, though there's a lot of excitement. Everybody wants AI, and they're taking shortcuts, like going to vendors where you haven't thought through, like, is this vendor allowing the model to train on their data? So you have customers that would never allow yesterday their rate information or their contract data or their capacity insights out of their four walls. All of a sudden, they're making it available not to just a vendor, but to the large language model that's training on that. And God forbid that type of data becomes publicly available. So it's a Wild West, and I think we want to help customers be a little bit more thoughtful about how and when and who with whom they share data with.
This is a little off track, but probably 6 months ago, 3 months ago, I interviewed Danielle Spinelli from Descartes, and she was doing a webinar. Descartes was doing a webinar with the California Highway Patrol on strategic cargo theft. And we've seen a huge rise in that. So we've always had this opportunistic cargo theft, but now we're seeing organized crime involved, whether it's the cartels or other groups that are getting involved and stealing. They know that they're going to steal that truck when it got loaded in California at the port, and California has a huge issue. And I was to a number of conferences. I was at 3 conferences probably the last 6 weeks. Every one of the conferences was abuzz with cybersecurity, freight fraud, and cargo theft, and including Sammy Hagar and Guy Fieri losing $1 million worth of tequila. And the truck drivers who stole that didn't know they were stealing it. They drove it, they picked it up where they're supposed to pick it up and dropped it off where they're supposed to drop it off. Very sophisticated. We got to get to the root of all that.
Well, that's, it's interesting because that's why we bought My Carrier Portal about a little over a year ago, is we wanted to give our customers, and really there's no silver bullet. I call it the belt and suspenders. We need as many belts and suspenders as possible, but we've taken the My Carrier Portal insights. MacroPoint's Fraud Guard module has lots of real-time and historical insights on these drivers and the carriers. As we started, we've now merged those things together to give our customers the ability to even make better choices based on real-time, real-world data. And Danielle's done a great job. She was actually, I think she did a ride-along with the California Highway Patrol a week or 2 ago.
Yep. And I think she's at the Broker Carrier Summit this week. So, yeah, it's very interesting because, again, I do believe at some point the big shippers that everybody wants to work with are going to say, here's the standards you need to meet. And I went to your hometown down to Cleveland last year at this time for the cybersecurity conference, and very boring advice that we got from all the experts who were down there, which was hygiene, just clean stuff up. And I keep coming back to it is the company that's managing your technology, managing all your data, are they able to do that? And there's a lot of companies that are suffering right now. This has been a difficult time for the carriers and the brokers and the tech guys who sell to them. So if you're a small company, I worry that you're not going to, you said it, cut corners. If you cut corners with security, you put people at risk.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we're a publicly traded company, so we're accountable to our shareholders, certainly to the auditors, and most importantly to our customers. But there's tons of investment that we make, not just within our global security teams, but down to the employee level, where there's cybersecurity training that happens, uh, certifications. We have to pass certain tests every so often to stay on at Descartes. So that's the level of commitment that we have. And like you said, as a smaller company, you just don't have the resources to invest in that.
Yeah. Well, it's boring. It's boring. And by the way, being at the cybersecurity conference, very different than being at the average conference because there's not a whole bunch of sales guys saying, "Hey, here's the future." It's a whole bunch of tech guys saying, "Slow down, do this." One of the things I learned at that conference is we all have APIs and we can move very quickly. Make sure the APIs that we're using are safe. Make sure, take an extra day. Make sure that API meets the standard that your company has established. And if you haven't established that standard, get it established. And yeah, you know, we're not going back from automation. This automation is what makes our world move really fast. But the reason freight fraud has kind of gained purchase in our business is because the phone calls we used to make are now done by technology, and good thing. But it now requires us to have maybe an extra layer of security that you guys provide, and that's absolutely where we got to be moving with this stuff. Anyway, there's a lot of other things I wanted to talk to you about. So, navigating the crowded AI market. We touched on AI a little bit here, but there's a whole bunch of it out there, and most of them are startups. And you talked about this build, buy, and partner strategy. Please elaborate.
Sure. And I think we're accountable to our customers to do this, where we're always innovating. So our product teams see areas of innovation, agentic AI being one of the hottest ones, and are all leaning in and investing. Acquisition wise, where we see either capabilities, and typically it's not just capabilities, but it's people that we'd like to acquire inside of our business to help us move faster and give our customers the comfort. So I think if I look at our largest customers, they want to sit on the sidelines and or expect us to be the ones delivering these AI capabilities. They're very, Joe, you've been in the business a long time. There's a lot of companies that come and go. And certainly in these gold rush days of new technology, I think, it used to be blockchain and other things. They come up and then they go. Now, I'm not comparing agentic AI to blockchain, but some of the same things are happening where companies are trying to build their business on a technology. And we see it as a very powerful technology that is a value-based enhancer to our existing platforms versus being a standalone product, if you will.
The bigger companies I talk to, I won't mention names, but a few people have said to me off air, I worry that we're behind on AI. They're the biggest companies in the space. And I always say, you have Fortune 500 companies. It's not easy to just switch gears and say, hey, we're going to try this. We're going to try an experiment with your 2 million shipments that you do this year. It's not what we should be doing. You have to go slow with this, especially as you said, there's data at risk, and you gotta be a little careful.
And data is money. So you have to protect it. And I think Descartes, we spent about 9 months with a very well-known large language model and public cloud provider to really make sure every switch was flipped and button was turned to make sure that our data was secure. The model isn't learning on any of our data, and it couldn't leave any which way. And that's a huge investment of time and resources, but that's important, and our customers expect us to do that.
I'm all for AI. I use it every day. We have played around with it today when we're coming up with titles. I'm all for it. But what bugs me a little bit is it does sometimes give just bad data. I see it all the time. I see it once every day when I'm using it, where you go, wait, that's not right. Where did you get this? And then I'll Google it. I'll cut, copy, paste and go, Oh, so it's exciting to have somebody write a paragraph for me and that I don't have to write or my team doesn't have to write and go, oh, that's great. Is it correct? Because that matters too. It looks good. It's formatted right. The grammar is good.
Yeah, that's the hallucination. And I was just actually sharing because someone was saying the exact same thing to me yesterday. And I sent them the Wikipedia explanation of what AI hallucinations are, and they are real. And if anybody has played around trying to get it to do, and again, it's getting better every day, but math or rate predictions and things like that, and we R&D lots of things across lots of use cases, it's not close or performant enough to fit in a lot of use cases today.
If this reminds, I was an automotive guy for many years, so I remember doing some projects at Chrysler, and I remember it was these IT companies would always show up and go, "We got to get these guys off this mainframe," and I've heard the same thing when I get over here. There's companies that have been around for a long time. The early adopters of the technology are the biggest Fortune 500 companies, and they might have tens of millions of records that people go, well, yeah, we'll just use that. Like, no, you can't. These companies, as soon as you're publicly traded like Descartes, the rules, the barriers are much higher to get over. And I'm always kind of surprised when I hear people kind of make fantastic claims about the AI because it's the biggest players just are not going to experiment. They're going to wait till it's prove it to me, Dan, before we use it anywhere.
Right. Well, we stood up a center of excellence inside of Descartes for AI about 2 years ago. So the R&D and innovation, we've been doing it for about 2 years, but what you're saying makes total sense is that moving to productionalized, accountable, 24/7 system, it's a long road. And so we're starting to meter out, like I said, some of the agents within MacroPoint and others, but we move slow and cautious because there is a lot at risk.
Yeah, it's a very difficult market right now, and I think there's a lot of companies that are already. Perhaps they're not all using Descartes, maybe the smaller companies. They're taking risks, and I think that's part of the freight fraud. They're working with someone who they have a little sketchy. Guy doesn't like to talk on the phone, but he texted me and they're $30 cheaper, so we used them. This is not the time to take that chance. So I have lots of notes here that we wanted to talk about. But is there anything that you wanted to touch on that you guys are up to that is top of mind for you?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think the agentic AI is top of mind. It's, we're as excited as anybody, and we've started to roll out agents. Like I said, within MacroPoint, Debbie is one of the agents, and she helps drivers and carriers get onboarded into our network. And
really,
yep. And she went live, maybe a few months ago. And now we're seeing not only proactive outreach that she does where we can tell that there's an issue with the driver installing, as an example. They can call us back and talk to Debbie 24/7. So there's thousands of phone calls that happen nights and weekends that would never have happened before. And so the level of service that we're delivering to the drivers has dramatically jumped. And again, as we think about our network, it's really about making sure we facilitate the drivers and carriers that want to get into the MacroPoint network as quickly as possible.
So let me ask this about young Debbie. Is she getting better every day with her interactions?
Yeah, so it's a phenomenal process where, prompting. So really adjusting the prompts, and we use AI to evaluate all of her interactions. What's gone well, what wasn't successful, what didn't work. And then we continue to reprompt and retweak Debbie. And so, yes, her interactions with with drivers have dramatically improved just over the last 2 months.
So what is the adoption when they're
Yeah, I was going to say we replaced. So we had a team of people that were doing this work, and we migrated them into other customer facing roles. And the performance since going from the team to Debbie, 20 percentage points improvement.
wow. So this being I was going to ask you, is the adoption, I mean, are people accepting this and saying, yeah, this is something that I'm comfortable with? So apparently so.
Apparently so. I mean, it's like I said, 20 percentage points higher in performance with Debbie involved. That's a phenomenal step.
So you're doing that internally for your team. Are you bringing similar things? You're basically testing it out on you, but are you thinking you're going to bring this to some of your other tools that are for brokers and carriers?
No doubt. And we have a whole roadmap of these agents that we're rolling out over the next 3 months that are really helping to automate a lot of the work that typically our customers have been doing. So they've had to manually work around some validation, some business rules that they want to turn on. And we're starting to enable and give our customers the option to choose an agent. And they then will have the option to, do they want to do it manual? Do they want to do an agent? If they want to do an agent, do they want to use a purpose-built agent inside a MacroPoint? Or do they want to use a third-party AI company? So they'll have lots of opportunities to pick and choose by agent.
You know what? This is very exciting. One of the things I've always thought about when it comes to technology, and I know technology implementations have gotten much better, but in the olden days, not so long ago, when you got a new TMS, it was all hands on deck. We're going to fight like hell for the next 4 months, and then we're going to implement it. Then we're going to go back to our day job. And what sometimes happened, I think a lot of times happened, we implemented 60% of the solution. We turned some things off because it wasn't working for us. So I get the 60% solution. And then when Dan calls and says, hey, how's it going? I say, well, we're just, the ROI's okay, not great. And then you say, remember, we talked about 100% implementation would get you that ROI. I think, I'm jumping ahead here. I think with these AI agents, we can get to the place where you say, we're going to continuously improve, continuously onboard our customers to solutions that they need. And maybe they don't need every solution that you guys have, but if I have an AI agent constantly looking at this and saying, hey, I notice you do this manually. We can help you do it with automation or with AI.
Yeah, and I think that the important point, though, is these are enhancements to our teams versus a replacement. So the example you just gave is a fantastic one. So we invest heavily in our TAM organization, so technical account managers that engage with our customers on the exact conversation that you're talking about, Joe. So proactively showing them, here's what you're doing. Here's the ROI that you told us you wanted to achieve when you purchased it. Here's where you are so far. Let's work together to continue to add the capabilities. Like you said, maybe you didn't turn them all on. Let's turn those things on so you get to the full return that you expected. And agents are a part of helping do that.
Yes. And, well, let's talk about implementation, if you don't mind. So I have implemented or been part of an implementation, probably 5, 6 TMS over time. And more than once, there was the surprise where it was like, oh, we need to do this and it's going to take 6 weeks to integrate. Those problems seem to have kind of faded away. We don't have nearly as many specialized integrations that only one guy in a million can do. Talk about the implementations now, which are much better than the olden days, but then again, talk about the future.
Yeah, I mean, I think 2 things have changed. I think number one, customers have accepted that they don't need their solution to be bespoke, right? They've understand that, hey, these purpose-built platforms are optimized for a reason. And then how do I take my existing business rules and adjust them into this new optimized environment? So that's I think the first thing is, and I lived through the 90s when we did big consulting projects, big custom implementation with requirements gathering that and waterfall development that took months and months and years. Now customers understand that the ROI on that is not valuable, and you tend to lose out on the capabilities of these SaaS platforms when you try to build your own. So that's the one. And then the second is the technology is just that much better. I mean, we can move more quickly and align it more quickly when we think about integrating to other data sets, like we couldn't even 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah, this always reminds me again. It's my personal life that quickly became the expectation for my business life. I got a new computer, I don't know, a year ago, whatever it was, and I remember thinking, "Oh, here it is. It's like a week wasted while I make this transition from my old computer to my new computer." And I think it took an hour. I mean, it brought everything over. It brought my passwords over, my defaults. I was like, wow. Same with my phone. Remember, we used to get a new phone. It was like, okay, might as well take a vacation while I lose a week because my phone doesn't have what it needs. Not anymore.
I was just going to say, I just got a new phone a couple weeks ago, and it was exactly that. I remember 4 years ago when I got a phone, it was a day of resetting up everything.
Oh, an annoying day at that.
An annoying day. And now it just worked. It's fantastic.
So I think the expectations that we have, that we see in our personal life and go, hey, if I can get it here, I know I can get it at work. And I think also, to be fair, I think the industry is delivering. I think the implementations are much easier. Thank God I'm not part of one this 1 minute, but I know from talking to people that it's not nearly as bad as it once was. I always ask people, what is the implementation on this? And I'm shocked. Now, these are smaller apps, of course, but when people say, I'll get you set up in 30 minutes. We got a Zoom call. We'll do this in 30 minutes. That is unheard of not so long ago.
Yeah, I mean, the transition from implementation to what we call activation, where for a lot of our products, you're getting activated in the product versus an implementation, which to me is a project plan and things like that.
Yeah, I haven't talked to him in a minute, but Brad Forrester from JBF Consulting, he advises big shippers on selecting transportation management systems. And he said, Joe, the biggest issue we've had in his business over time was people implementing only part of the solution and then complaining that they weren't getting the ROI. And I was like, I get it. We've all been part of those implementations that drag on an extra month or two. And meanwhile, you don't feel like you're doing your day job. And so you say, okay, we're just going to implement it at 60%, at 80%. And the what we were sold on by the sales guy, we're not doing it right now. But I think just based on what we talked about here today, we're going to get to that place where we get that 100% implementation. That's not going to be a death march. And also we get all of the features that we're sold.
That's right. And, ARC just came out with a report, a global evaluation of transportation and fleet management systems. And Descartes is the largest provider in the world for those solutions. So we continue to learn, and we're certainly hold ourselves accountable to continue to innovate and improve those implementation experiences.
Yep. So one more time, I know you guys have some pillars that you want to discuss. What are the pillars that make up Descartes?
Yeah. So, we have our transportation management pillar, our routing, mobile, and telematics pillar that I hit on a little bit. We have our e-commerce pillar and our global trade intelligence pillar.
And what is global trade and intelligence?
So getting insights on where tariffs are, where your risks lie, who you can and can't legally send goods to.
Yes, yes, yes.
So there are lots of insights related to interfaces with other countries and tariffs.
So the transportation management was one, routing and telematics, ecom, global trade intelligence. What was the last one?
Our LSP business, so logistics service providers, and those are primarily freight forwarders and all the technology that a freight forwarder needs to service their customers.
So you definitely order to cash, because I feel like that's where the world is moving towards. We have a whole bunch of different systems out there that are like these point solutions that I'm from the biggest, baddest supply chain on earth, which is automotive. And we just want flow. I don't want to know I don't want to see that there's a whole bunch of point systems that don't know what happens upstream or downstream of them.
Yep. And we try to get customers the ability that maybe they start with a point solution, but the reason they do, but they know that they have really connectivity to a much broader set of capabilities that gives you the flow experience that you're talking about.
Well, let's wrap this bad boy up. I think I've already gone over my time with you, but I've been talking to my friend Dan Cicerchi, and we're talking about scaling logistics innovation at Descartes Systems Group, and lots of stuff going on in the world right now. So we talked about cybersecurity. Again, I do believe we're heading for, potentially a cyber 9/11, a digital 9/11. And I think we're all should be proactive now. Don't be the one who gets hit because you worked with a whole bunch of smaller suppliers that may be not able to ward off the bad guys. And we see it in the news all the time. The bad guys have gotten increasingly sophisticated. I went to that cybersecurity conference last year. There's state actors, China, Iran, etc. There's the hacktivists who are trying to get into our systems and telling us, to end capitalism or something. And then there's just the guys who are holding systems hostage. But these companies are getting increasingly sophisticated. I think I get a dozen phishing things a week in my email, and they only have to win once. So we talked a little bit about cybersecurity. We talked about who you guys serve, which is the carriers and certainly the drivers and a lot of the brokers. And you also work with shippers. And we talked about this technology suite. You guys are constantly innovating internally, but also buying up the companies that you think fit the suite of solutions that you guys have. Talked about what else am I missing here? I take notes as we go, and I just missed here. So we talked about the implementations and how the implementations have gotten easier, but still a challenge. And I love this part. Agentic agents like your Debbie, who is helping onboard drivers and doing it 20% better than the human team was. And I imagine before long, it'll be 40% or 60%.
Right. Well, and it's 20 percentage points better. So dramatically better than we were able to do it with our human teams.
So if you're doing it for your human teams, I'm assuming you're going to soon roll something out that we can all be using. But I think that's very exciting. And I also like what you said is we're not replacing our team, we're enhancing our team. I see, I think there's a lot of fear that AI is going to replace everybody. But Dan, we can't do that because I need a human to be responsible for the AI functions, because I can yell at that human and they will care.
Right. Well, it enables people to get out of some of the day-to-day and spend more time on the relationships and dealing with the edge case scenarios that are a problem. And you need people to do that.
Yes. And right now, somebody said to me a year ago, Ann Ranke from TIA said to me, if you could do just one thing to prevent freight fraud, what would you do? And I said, well, first off, I'd buy all the cool tech that's out there, the My Carrier portal. So you got to vet your partners. I said, but pick up the phone. The guy you talk to on the phone once a month about your load isn't the guy stealing from you. And I think that's where you said, hey, we'll free people up with the AI and allow them to build the relationships you're supposed to be building with your partners, whether that's a carrier or a shipper. Go to work. We also, last but not least, we talked a little bit about all the the pillars that make up Descartes. We talked about your transportation management group, your routing and telematics group, e-commerce, I should say, and logistics service providers, last but not least, global trade and intelligence. Super important these days. And I will also say that there's a whole bunch of companies and countries that we're no longer allowed to sell to. The State Department will catch you if you're doing that. That's a really big issue for anybody who's a multinational. I've experienced this firsthand with one of my customers. They were selling something that people tried to buy in the Middle East. They said no, they caught it there. The next day they tried to buy it in Latin America. They caught it there. And then the next day they're trying to buy it in the US. This is global security that we are responsible for. And if you don't have data, you make the bad decision. This is not only security risk, it's reputational risk and the risk of really bad things happening. Anyway, enough of my blather. Dan, put a big old bow on this one. Final thoughts on the topic.
Well, look, Joe, I've appreciated great conversation. I mean, I think the takeaway is really the excitement around agentic AI. We share it. We're delivering some production capabilities. We're helping vet partners. Just the encourage, I think you hit on it, is be thoughtful about who you're partnering with and where your data is going to live. And at the end of the day, it's about freeing up the best and brightest people within your company to spend more time with your customers. And that's, to me, a great thing to enable.
Yep. Dan, I don't know what conferences. I know every conference I go to, I see Descartes people, but you going to any conferences coming up?
I think through the end of the year, I am in shutdown. So I don't think I have.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, customer meetings for sure. Our quarter ends at the end of this week, so we're certainly working to the end there. But I don't think I have any more conferences this year.
I see you guys every conference I go to. So if I know you can't make it to all of them, but your team gets to all of them. Well, Dan, thank you so much for taking the time. It was a pleasure talking to you. I love what you guys are doing.
Thanks, Joe. Great seeing you.
Yep. And thank all of you for listening to my podcast. Your support's very much appreciated. Until next time, onward and upward. You have been listening to the Logistics of Logistics podcast, where we engage with leaders in the logistics and supply chain community. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, hit the like button, and leave us a nice review on Apple or Spotify or wherever else you listen. Also, please check out our videos on YouTube and connect with us on LinkedIn. We're very big on LinkedIn. And you can also reach us on the logisticsoflogistics.com, our website.